And good morning, and welcome to Touch Base Daily. My name is Ron Foster, and I'm touching base with you as I do every day. Good morning to everyone. So much in the news, so much going on. We're getting closer to Election Day, and those folks out there that are already put your vote in, congratulations. I know some people are voting already, depending on where you are around the country. Voting has started. And so so excited about that. So today is going to be our water cooler day. I didn't know exactly what we were going to be doing on this Wednesday, but it turns out today is going to be a water cooler talk Wednesday. And you know how we do. We just roll. I also, if you want to come on, you can click on the barcode. I also sent my links to my, the main panelists. So all of that's taken care of. So if you want to come on later on, you can scan the barcode and come on our YouTube. If you are in Instagram, come on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe and like and all that good stuff. Okay, so much in the news, and the one big thing is Milton. Milton is in the news, y'all. It is. I have some friends that live in Tampa area. Some friends that I grew up. I didn't say grow up, but we all went to church together, and they live in the Tampa area. And hey, Adrian, what's going on? Anyway, I didn't say hello to everybody. I didn't do that yet. Let me just do that first. Before I dive in to the hurricane that's going on, let me say hello to some folks. And first person up is Rashawn. Rashawn, good morning, Ron and RLP family. And the next in the building with the silver is Hannah. She says, good morning. It's so good to see Hannah back. Hannah says, good morning, Rashawn, Ron, and RLP. And third, look at Roland. Mr. Roland is in the building with third place. Good morning, he says. Then we got Jazzy. Good morning, beautiful people. And then obviously Adrian. Didn't want to give you the, the push to the head. They would say, it'd be like, no, that's favoritism. Happy day, chat. Yes, that's what this is. Elise is in the building. She says, good morning, Ron and everyone. So it is, this is for the folks in Florida. If you have not left, you need to leave right away in the Tampa area. Even if it goes slightly south of Tampa, is still in the direct line of fire with the 10 to 15 foot water surge. It is not going to be pretty. When Helene came on, they had 6 foot wall of water that came upon the shoreline that was devastating in itself. This one's supposed to be 10 to 15. That does not look good if you are by the coast. So get out there. I've heard they had buses that were going into the coastal areas and picking up people to take them to shelters, take them to the arenas and different gyms and other places and schools outside of the area. So don't stay home. Don't stay. For those folks that are out there, especially if people that know, or you may happen to see this broadcast, get out there, get out. Hope your bags are all packed and ready to go. It's already raining there. It's already starting to storm. The other worry is the spinoff of tornadoes that are usually ahead of the hurricane. So you have the hurricane coming in, it creates these disturbances in the atmosphere, and you get tornado activity. So it does not look good for anyone on the Florida Peninsula, the whole state except for way down in Key West. And still they're gonna get some winds and rains from it. Oh, good morning, y'all. Good morning. And since we are on that, and since we like to dive into politics at the same time, And also, I'm going to welcome Miss G is in the building. Hello, Auntie G.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Can I just add to your hurricane evacuation comment?
Yes.
And Jazzy and I talked about this yesterday in the chat. When people speak about evacuating, a lot of folks speak about it from a place of access, right? So getting
Yeah.
out is not as easy as it sounds. Like you need to have a reliable car, you need a place to go, you need money, and even the ability to miss work. Now, granted, your job should be closed. Let me just go ahead and say that. If your job is not closed, you might want to rethink that. But you have to have the ability to miss so many days.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really look at where most Americans are, as Jazzy mentioned yesterday, a lot of folks don't have $1,000 for an emergency fund.
No, most people
If
don't.
something
Yeah.
was to happen, they are going to be underneath that poverty line or like right at it. So when people are like, now I do believe that if the city is giving you resources to get to a shelter, then do that.
Yes.
But it is a lot. And I'm coming from a Houston standpoint where as big as Houston is, a lot of folks rely on public transportation to get around Houston. We have light rail, we have the bus. It's not just pack up your stuff and get out. And then you got to get out of Houston. That part, right? And go somewhere. So it's bigger than just, well, why aren't they leaving? Because they don't have the access to leave.
Yeah. But the good thing about what I've heard from the news reports is that they've been really active with getting buses out into those areas. And so, but there have been some people still not wanting to get on the buses and leave. They want to stay.
That's different.
And that's a different story. But I mean, because the buses are there, they've already, there's some gyms that they already have the cots and everything laid out, everything. I mean, it was really interesting how, because of the Helene, they were able to really dive in and make sure that before Milton arrived, that they got all that stuff taken care of. So, hey, Miss Elise is in the building.
Good morning.
Good morning. So much is going on in the world today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting time.
Interesting time. Speaking of Milton, I wanted to share this because this is so important. And since we are closing in, as we get closer to the last day of elections, which is election day, this is a good subject. And I thought our folks, our friends, I like to say my friends at Morning Joe, they did such a good interview here. And I wanted to share this with you guys because I thought it was really good. So listen to this, and you'll see the connection of Milton and all the hurricanes and future storms connected to Project 2025, and why it's so important that we do not let Project 2025 happen.
Welcome back. As Hurricane Milton strengthens in the Gulf of Mexico, the conservative policy agenda known as Project 2025 is calling for the breakup of the federal agency that issues severe storm warnings. The plan says the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, or NOAA, which houses the National Weather Service, is a component of, quote, the climate change alarm industry, and should be downsized, while much of its climate change research should be disbanded. So think about that right now. In the wake of Hurricane Helene's biblical destruction, looking down the barrel of Milton, they're calling it the climate change alarm industry in Project 2025. Joining us now, former Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs, Monica Medina. I would think this is a moment where perhaps it's important to point out that Donald Trump, although he says he's not connected with Project 2025, but his top people put it together, looks at climate change and potentially following this plan would get rid of the very warning system that we would need to prepare for a moment like this.
That's absolutely true, Mika. Thank you so much for having me on to talk about this, because it couldn't be more important. The Trump plan is as dangerous as these storms themselves. And we need to make sure we understand that once that weather system, all that architecture that underlies all the private forecasts, all the local weather forecasts, all of that is underpinned by the National Weather Service. And if we dismantle that, we lose this one vital link to keeping ourselves safe. Not only our property and our businesses, but lives are at risk.
And I want to take a step back before we move forward more into this and look at what the Biden administration has done, is doing to prepare for severe weather like this. And if you could talk about FEMA's rumor response page, which I think would be useful at a time like this.
Thank you for pointing that out. It's unbelievable that in the midst of a storm, when we should be pulling together as a nation, FEMA has to divert resources from actually responding to the storm to knock down all the disinformation that we see online and being broadcast through social media. It's terrible that anyone is having to knock down these lies, that we have to have pages like that put on federal response. Instead of where do you go to get help, it's what to disallow, what to disavow, what not to believe. It's awful.
So give us a sense, Monica. I mean, right now we have the President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris working to support those who are devastated by Hurricane Helene, and they're preparing now for Milton, which looks to be catastrophic in the Tampa and surrounding areas and possibly beyond. What would that look like if we jumped a year from now and there was a President Trump in office?
What it would look like is a much more difficult disaster response. Of course, President Trump had threatened to, in the past, withhold disaster assistance if places weren't seen as having voted for him. So I've said in the past that these are dangerous proposals of his because they are. Look at the devastation in these places. And if we didn't have the kind of robust disaster response that you see from President Biden and Vice President Harris, and what the vice president promises to continue in her term if she were elected, we would have weeks and weeks of devastation. It's already bad enough. When small businesses are shut down by a disastrous storm like this, 40% never rebuild. Vice President Harris is promising huge tax breaks for people who want to start businesses. That could be a lifeline for some of the people who are going to lose their businesses in these storms. It's really important for the federal government to have a robust, very well-funded response. And what we see is that the Republicans, if Donald Trump is elected, he's going to pull this funding, and he will, in fact, be the one using it to try and stave off what he claims to be this huge crisis at the border. This is our crisis today. This is the one that really matters.
Yeah. So you see where we are. Let me just put that. I mean,
that's where we are.
Long sigh.
You know, it's like so. The people who are doing all the complaining,
yes,
are some of the very people who have blocked funding for FEMA. Right?
Yes,
part of the funding that President Biden has sought
2 weeks ago,
come back to make sure it's in place, is funding for small businesses who are damaged during these natural disasters. That's the thing that he was asking them to come back for, so they can make sure that there's enough funding there, so that for small businesses when they're doing this cleanup. And so you have the people who are Mike Johnson flat out refusing to come back and do that. And then in Tampa, they were still cleaning up from Helene. So they had to, and I saw where the Tampa mayor was saying, they had to clean up the debris that was out there. They had trucks coming in yesterday to help clean up that debris, because that debris was still on the street because Helene just happened, right? And so and some things to clear up. So it's talking about NOAA, which NOAA is right behind my house. Actually, it's like I live in the far reaches of Northwest DC. It's right over the border in Silver Spring. That's where the office is. That's where the headquarters is of NOAA, which does all of that. And I've been in there. I've taken students in there before and seen all their equipment, so you can see what that looks like and what they're doing all the time. So you're talking about that. Also, in Project 2025, they didn't talk about them and what they would do with FEMA.
Yes, they want to get rid of FEMA.
Stuff about FEMA. There's the National Weather Service. All those things are in there to be attacked. And then what people aren't being honest about, and even the former president himself, when he was in office, there was only $500.
Yes, $500
that he would receive for emergency funds for the state of North Carolina, and they only got 1% of what they requested for the disaster when it happened with them. Yeah. And so you have DeSantis, who's the governor of Florida, who voted against hurricane relief for Sandy. So these are the people who we're dealing with, right? So, and then in February, is my understanding from a conversation I heard, it was in February that the Biden administration actually worked to get the $750 for emergency relief for people. So imagine this. You're still dealing with the people from Helene, and they said some of the people are, because of all the rumors, aren't reaching out to get the assistance the immediate assistance they could get. We don't want that to happen again in Milton. And then you also, will they have the resources, the financial resources, if they don't come back before the election for people to get that immediate relief? Because all that, money is not real. I put it that way. So they could just transfer it electronically to someplace so that is there for the people. And I think that's where we are. And that's what people have to think about as they're preparing for these 435 House representatives who are up for re-election. The ones in the state of Florida voted against the hurricane relief for FEMA funding. So that's what people need to remember, that these people are, even though they're heightening the misinformation and disinformation intentionally, they also didn't vote for you to have the funding you need for these emergencies. But the money, you still need to make sure you go out, no matter what they hear. I hope people go out and get and reach out so they can get their funding. Yeah, you have to put something on there who you are. But imagine if it was just open, everybody everywhere would be applying for funding. They would probably wouldn't even live in the state of Florida or North Carolina just to get money. So there is some structure in place. But please, people, reach out. The funding is there for you, and don't listen to all the insanity on the internet.
Yeah, my thing is, just imagine if there was no NOAA that was able to prepare, at least give the people in the Appalachian Mountains some warning that the storm was coming. Could you imagine a world with no NOAA? That, the satellites, the information for people to be able to move their boats out of the docks, to board up, to get ready for a hurricane. NOAA does all of that. NOAA is our whole prevention is tied into NOAA of disasters that could be even more magnified. But we've never lived in an era. This is also, think back to COVID. I hope people can remember, because Americans have short memories. COVID is the same thing. How is it possible that a country would lose their minds over a mask or over vaccines? Our country, and it's the same trolls. It's the same trolls doing the same thing. It's Trump and his crazy folks. Is that whole band of misfit toys that keep doing what they do. And you think about what they're using the same tactics.
Right.
The same thing that was happening in COVID. You would say, how could it be that a country could be divided on trying to survive a pandemic? Doesn't make sense. Hey, Mr. B, good morning.
Morning. You know, the misinformation about the response about the federal government's part. I just recently heard some of the, like in detail, some of the lies. I have like three thoughts at one time. One, I feel like we should banish the word falsehoods from the talking points about the other side. Because
it's just outright lies.
Yeah,
it's just lies.
Call a lie lies. That's one. Two, the one lie that is perpetuated is that the current Biden-Harris administration is taking the funds and using them somewhere else. I'm no civics expert, but one thing I do know, and somebody can look this up for yourself and double check it, but how government works, funds that are allocated for certain branches, they're allocated for that branch. It's a blessing and a burden at the same time, because the notion that, oh, well, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are taking these FEMA funds and giving them to migrants over here is totally it's totally false, and it's an outright lie, because monies that are, let's be real, our tax dollars, all of us who pay taxes, are allocated in certain like silos. They can't be used elsewhere. I found that out by talking to my or I had that reinforced by talking to one of my elected officials. It's like, no, money in the budget, say for example, let's make it plain, money that's in the budget for repaving streets. How come you can't use that to clean up and refurbish this park over here? Because that's not in the same budget. That's in another budget.
All money is allocated. And again, the Congress, not to cut you off, but the Congress controls the purse strings. Congress controls the purse strings of the country, of government, and where money goes, where it gets distributed to, where it needs to go. And you can't use one to go to the other and put from one purse to the other purse. It doesn't work that way. But the thing is with the with what's going on is that it's so sad that these people they're not thinking about the people. Like she just said, instead of FEMA now worried about putting down where you can get the money, how you can get the money, how you can get the things that help you, all that list on, now there has to be on the opening page of FEMA, all of the lies that have to be debunked so that people can know what's a lie and what's not. They shouldn't even have to do that.
So I'm going to lay that at the feet of mainstream media.
Yes.
Oh, well,
because they keep repeating the lies. They know they're lies. So stop talking to the people who are spreading the lies. Stop it. Stop posting them. And even people online, stop posting the former president with the lies. And then I want you all to know, and you can find this, that I always believe when people scream the loudest and they make a lot of accusations, go look back at what they've done.
Yes.
The former president somehow used some FEMA money.
Yes.
For housing immigrants seeking asylum.
Yes.
When he was in office. So everything that he's saying is actually things that how he misused funds.
It's always projection.
Not anything to do with this current administration. Most of the time you hear him speak, those are things that he's done. And now want to put it at somebody else's feet. And I think we have to understand, I think mainstream media has been so intent on just getting clickbait and trying to attract people that they're perpetuating the lies.
Well,
and I think they need to be held accountable for that, because that's where it's coming from. FEMA wouldn't have to do this if mainstream media focused on the issue of making sure people were safe, putting out factual information, helping them get out the information on where they can go for this assistance, instead of every time you turn around, you have these people out there. Stop talking to Mike Johnson. He's going to sit there and look like he does.
He's going to lie. They all lie.
Just stop talking to him.
Yes.
Because he's not going to do anything, and he's not going to do anything unless his puppeteer tells him to do something. We need to be clear on that. Even though he's up for re-election, Louisiana,
and they need to
vote. 600,000 Black people who didn't vote the last time. Get up off your behinds and vote this man out of the office.
Yes, I agree.
One thing that we've consistently said, and I say this ad nauseum, ever since seeing President Biden in person, standing 20-25 feet away, the media is complicit. The media is complicit in the narrative. So we get I use the Ronald Reagan line with the media, where I get some of my information: trust but verify. And that's one. And then the second thing is that maybe I'm nostalgic, but traditional journalism is
gone. It's almost dead. Those days are gone.
When LBJ, right before he announced he wasn't going to run in '68, one of the things that he said to one of his aides, that's historical now, is that he knew when he lost Cronkite, he lost as far as the coverage of Vietnam. Journalism is supposed to be truth above everything else, and in this environment, it's like truth above except when it's these political figures who are in the news, then we'll give them a pass. No, truth should be.
And it's
truth,
not all
period.
political. It's not all political people. It's the political foe. Unfortunately, is Trump, because just putting him on the headlines generates, lots of clicks. Anyway, can we go to the next? I want to go to another subject, since we were on this time so long. Right. Did anyone see any of Kamala's interviews yesterday, or listen to any of them?
No.
Oh man! First we had The View. That was really good. I'm gonna cue that in so you guys can see that. That was really good. They had The View. She had what's his name? Howard Stern, and Stephen Colbert. Those were the main ones yesterday. I missed the Stephen Colbert. Got to catch up to that one, but I did see the other two. I listened to the Howard Stearns, and it was really good. Those were really good interviews. She held her own. For all the folks out there that are saying she's not doing her interviews, and I believe, again, this is all part of the plan, because Absolutely. you can't do interviews when you're out there starting a campaign. You have to do the beginning, start the campaign, lay the foundations, lay in the groundwork. Now you have all this stuff out there that you need to have out there working for you. All the groundwork people on the streets and out in the byways and the highways. Now you can do your interviews, because now you are established. You have your campaign moving. It's growing, and she's not in a bad place in the national polls, but the national polls do not matter. So we got to make sure that she does well in these toss-up states. But this is really good. Let me just cue this in real quick. Oh, sorry, that was a bad. Move that and stop that share and create a new share. One day I'll be able to switch screens like easy. They got one more thing to add to this wonderful format of our wonderful StreamYard. Okay, here we go.
We're get there, Ron.
We're getting there.
American history.
I decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
How she's igniting a wave of excitement that she hopes to ride into the White House.
Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it?
Responding to accusations that she's to blame for the immigration crisis.
It was all done by Comrade Kamala Harris. Our great borders are
her plan to win the nationwide fight for reproductive rights.
When Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms as President of the United States, I will so proudly sign it into law.
And sharing her vision to lead America into the future as the next president of the United States.
We are not going back. We are not going back.
Vice President Kamala Harris is live on The View.
This hurricane coming to Florida is and predicted to be historic in terms of how serious and devastating it will be. And I urge every and anybody who is watching or has family members in that area, please, please, please take seriously your local officials. Admonition to you, if they're telling you to evacuate, get your stuff and go. If they're whatever they're telling you, because we gotta, Floridians, tough folks, been through a lot. But this is going to be different than they've been before. And I know a lot of folks might think, I've been through this. I grew up here. I've seen it all. I'll be fine. This one is going to be different. And that's why I called the governor about what Florida has received in terms of impact. We have to have an agreement that at some point we all need to work together to combine resources, especially federal, state, and local resources around these kinds of disasters. It's just...
When I first joined Honeybook, I was roughly making $1,500 a month.
Almost impossible to do it all, especially if they work. We're finding that so many are then having to leave their job, which means losing a source of income, not to mention the emotional stress. And so what I am proposing is that basically what we will do is allow Medicare to cover in-home health care. Right. So, and because we're talking about these kinds of things where it's just about helping an aging parent or person, prepare a meal, put their sweater on. And it's about dignity for that individual. It's about independence for that individual. I mean, people are of declining skills to some extent, but their dignity their pride has not declined. No. They want to stay in their home. They don't want to go somewhere else. Plus, for the family to send them to a residential care facility, to hire somebody is so expensive.
And wipes you out.
And I'll just say, well, but here's the other thing about it. People say, well, how are you going to pay for it? Here's the thing. Here's how we pay for it. Part of what I also intend to do is allow Medicare to continue to negotiate drug prices against these big pharmaceutical companies, which means we are going to save Medicare the money because we're not going to be paying these high prices. And those resources are best then put in a way that helps a family like the one you are describing.
Which you have already done.
Which we have already done with insulin. So it can be done. It absolutely can be done. And it has to be about just seeing what's happening. And it's such a burden that's emotional, financial, physical. Care is about physical work. And helping people do what they rightly want and need.
So that was the big news yesterday. And I mean, she may have mentioned it before, but this was like really big news that they mentioned on The View is using, instead of waiting for Medicaid, where people have to be totally broke to get help and to get assistance, and which is something I'm working through with my mom right now. You had to make sure that everything was down. You had to make sure the money was at a certain price, because the money was above a certain level, then she couldn't get, so, but people should be able to get help before they're broke. And you shouldn't have to go broke to get help. And so I am with this. I am with this policy. This is what I was like, this is a good policy. And they were bringing, sharing, because most people are what's called in the sandwich generation, where they're taking care of their children and they're taking care of their parents.
Absolutely. I had a friend who had to go through that with his mother, what you're going through with your mother now, so for her to be in the facility. And he's like, they say she has too much money, but she didn't have money. So he had to figure all of that out. So because it's a fortune. for them to be in a facility. It costs
a fortune to be in a facility.
And so, and for some people, I had my grandmothers, for instance, they lived to be 98 years old. They didn't want to be in the hospital. They wanted to be at home. And so they needed to have access to care, and my mother stayed in my sister's home. So she was able to, because of her being on disability for so long, she was able to get the in-house care. But she had to be in that position to be able to do that. And so this is actually something that people who have, because we're living longer, so my kids may have to deal with this, and how do I take care of mom, make sure she has her dignity, or dad, make sure he has that dignity, and not just put him in a facility where I'm going to have to go to every day to check on them to see how they're being cared for.
Yeah, it was, I thought, when she said that, people were like, that was a big response in the audience. And I think, I know most of my friends are now taking care of their parents. And if they have them, some of my friends, their parents are no longer with us. But most of my friends, my age or that are slightly younger than I am, are taking care of their parents. And their parents are being needed to be taken care of at a younger age in some cases, because dementia is really becoming an epidemic in America, where so many people are getting dementia at a younger age. And so it's really not only dementia, but Alzheimer's, or dementia, Alzheimer together. And so it's like 3 categories: dementia, Alzheimer's, and then Alzheimer's.
Right.
But they don't need to be put into a home. What they do is just need someone to come in, cook for them so they can eat, make sure the medicine's being taken care of every day. They come in, they do the necessary things. And so that in itself is scary, but I'm glad that this is on the table. I'm hoping that, this is why, again, like Elise always says, and we repeat over and over again, you have to vote up and down the ticket blue. You cannot vote at split tickets. Split tickets was this, I don't know where that strategy came from. I used to do it when I was younger, when I first started voting. I don't know where it came from. I was like, I'll put the president in and then go against it. I don't know where that strategy came from, but it was the dumbest strategy, because you stop the country from making progress. If you're going to vote Republican, then you need to vote Republican all the way down the row. If you're going to vote Democrats, then you need to vote all the way down the ticket. Whatever you believe.
I never saw a reason to vote Republican. Never, ever. Ronald Reagan was the grand. So he was the grand wizard. He was the head of the Klan. That man was the devil. So sorry for those who voted for him.
He definitely had a lot. Yeah,
he was a destructive force.
He was a destructive force, and it was sad.
And the reason you pay for these colleges.
Oh yeah, well, before Reagan, colleges were free.
Yes.
Which when I was younger, I was like, Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, yada yada, and you're looking at it on what you call nostalgia. You're looking at historical values. You're looking at all this stuff, but you're not looking at the real policies. And now that I'm older, I go look back at those years in history, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known and been more educated. But I was 18 years old. What did I know? 19 years old. But
hoodwinked and bamboozled.
Yeah, yes, right. I was bamboozled.
And they're still doing it.
And they're still doing what they were doing back then. Project 2025 started in the Reagan years. And even though it's called Project 2025 now, but the policies
there was
they were still trying to be enforced, and they were enforced, because think about it, colleges no longer are free.
Right.
And that was in Project 2025. Well, it was in the manual that the Heritage Society
mandate for leadership. It's kept that name.
There you go.
Always had that name.
The mandate for leadership. Thank you.
Can I jump in real quick and just talk about your point of how we like to romanticize certain time periods? Is the same thing that goes behind Make America Great Again. I always ask for who, right? Because, looking at our history, wasn't so great. Wasn't so great at all. But I do like how VP Harris is talking about elder care. If I can jump on that, I got lucky. I'm not gonna say lucky. I was blessed to be in a position that when my husband's grandmother moved in with us, I could work from home, right? And then when my father became ill with lung cancer, I could shut down my business and stay in Houston for a little bit and come back. Everybody doesn't have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Like everyone does not have that kind of system and things set up in place to be able to do that. Elder care is a job. I mean, it hits you mentally, financially, physically, emotionally. Like you need a support system when you start taking care of your parents.
Yes.
So just offering that as a resource for people, that is a blessing that a lot of us don't know about because we're not there yet. Been there, and well, my mama's in Houston, so I stay on the road taking care of Miss Houston.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You'll get on the phone, call me. I'm on the road, Ron.
Gotta go to Houston.
Gotta go to Houston. But again, it's a support system. I mean, because there's days, you're trying to work your own business, you're trying to raise money, especially if you're an entrepreneur. If I don't make money, nothing gets done. So I gotta make money. And but having the support systems of the people around you that see your struggle and they reach out or they support in different ways, like my friends who say, Ron, let's go to dinner, let's do this, and don't worry about it, I got you. Or just those little moments of refuge, because your brain is always on overdrive when you are taking care of an elderly parent. And every phone call, when the phone rings at 2:00 or 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock, it's not going to be a good phone call when you see your mother's name on the phone and they're calling and then it's the police officer and you're like, Right. I mean, so you're always on this, it's almost like we would call it alert orange, like red alert or orange alert, like the alert. You never live on green again. When your parents are elderly, you never live on green. You always are in red or orange, or you very rarely get down to just yellow, but it's usually orange or red. It's just like, and your psyche is never relaxed and calm. And so I am very thankful for, or like, my son Adrian saying, hey, yo, Pop, let's get down, let's go to, join us in South Carolina. That was such a refuge to be able to just get away for those several days and just take a moment and just be in an environment of love and support and caring. He could not stop hugging me and I could not stop hugging him, just loving, just being in his environment and watching Nancy, and it is so important that they may not be the ones that are going to the house with you every day or, doing all the mundane things, but those outside helps,
right,
man, of just consideration, or hey, let's get together and do this, or just kind of like break you. My buddy, he calls me up, well, Ron, how's your mom, how you doing, what's going on, just checking in. It's support systems are so important, and this is another reason why I was really excited about Kamala's day out on her interviews. This was also, she shared this also on Howard Stern's, and that was really received well there as well.
It's so important to be seen, right, Ron?
What's that?
It's so important to be seen.
It's
like in a position like that, and as an aging parent myself, I'm like, this is gonna sound morbid, but I'm like, Lord, take me. Don't let my children have to spend that time, spend that money, spend that frustration of.
I've told Adrian that all the time. Yeah,
caring about me like that, and so there's that part, because I've seen both of my parents have to be cared for. Unfortunately, my sister was able to do the care in her home.
Yes,
and and we supported her in any way we could. but that was fortunate for my parents and the fact
Yes.
that she had that time to be able to do that until they passed, you know. And so on that side, because we were a family that was like, okay, so if I have to make a space, they can come here because I don't want them to, you know, be in a nursing home someplace. I don't want them to be in a facility. We didn't want that for them. So we were blessed to have her, but you don't want to be that, you think about that and you think about what the impact is on them, not just financially, but the emotional impact as well.
Well, and no one wants to be abandoned. I mean,
right.
My mother is the only reason why I'm probably in New York City. If my mother was not here and was not with us, I would be who knows where. I would sell the apartments like yesterday, got on a plane. I'll be living in Africa somewhere. I would have been somewhere, but and I talked to my neighbor yesterday. She's an elderly woman. She's like another mom to me, and she got her. It was her birthday, and her son sent her a bouquet of fruit basket or something, and she goes, Ron, do you want some of this fruit? I said, sure, I'm coming over. I come over with my big bag. She says, Ron, ain't that kind of party. You don't need that big bag. So, and we're laughing, but I look after her, like I hope, and which my mother's neighbors also look after her. Right. So you have to kind of like balance your, being that I'm right here for her. I can just go right across the hall and check up on her. And if I need to, reach out to her family, I could do that. But I also know that my mother's friends, they are the ones that kind of like are her support system there. And then they will call me and say, Ron, your mom didn't, she didn't do such and such today, blah, blah, blah. You may want to call her or you may want to stop by. And, so it takes a village. We cannot be islands to ourselves. And I told you the reason why I do Touch Base Daily was because of my own selfish motives of, we just started out with friends, just hanging out. Like it was Gwendolyn, Omar, BJ, and a couple of us. I just said, I just need to come on every day and just let y'all know I'm alive.
Right.
Because I was like, I live in an apartment. I'm getting older. I live by myself. If I fell in the shower and bumped my head and was knocked out, no one knew. No one would ever know because there's no accountability.
Right.
And so accountability is so important, and you have to build your support system, who you connect with. I'm trying to be better at connecting with my family, like my blood family more as well. But so it's important.
Yeah, we found out about how far my mother had declined, actually, because of the neighbor we had for years across the street from her in East Cleveland, Ohio. She called me one night, and they all called me Lisa, right? They said, Lisa, your mom's lights aren't on. Her lights got turned off. I said, what do you mean her lights got turned off? So, of course, she had forgotten to pay the bill. So that meant I then went there with my nephew to find out what was going on and to get some things set up, and then to talk to my siblings. And all of them were alive at that time. Talk to them, except for one. We did have one, which one of the things that, and talk to them about getting her to move. And of course, I was the one she trusted the most. So I had to be the one who came and convinced her to move and to set up some things and let my nephew have power of attorney because he was the closest one at the time. I had to go there and to get all that done because she didn't trust anyone. She got very distrustful of all of her children except for me.
Wow.
And so, and then I was the hardest one on her, but I had to go there and get all of those things in place with her, take her to the bank, do all of those things to get her ready. But it was because of a neighbor who said her lights aren't on. And have been turned off. And that's how we knew. And I'll tell you this, she, her memory was kind of going in and out, but she was still self-sufficient. But my brother, who was 2 years older than I, was the first one of my kids to pass. He passed in 2007. And what we found out from doctors was that because of her grief and everything associated with that, it actually can escalate
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, you know, I used to, like my mom, I mean, it doesn't happen as much now, but the police used to end up being at the house. She would call, and she would call the police and say that I was killed, and that was her thing. And she would call, and so the police would end up calling me, and are you alive, and blah blah blah. And I mean, she doesn't do it now, but they go through these cycles, and there's something going on in their memory, and so aging parents. And then I look at myself, I'm aging, and I feel it. I said to, was it you, and it was Miss Houston Jack over there, and I was like, yo, I mean, even Omar and we talk about, we say, I just turned 60, and I tell you, I feel so, I didn't think it would happen so fast. I mean, my endurance is not the same that it was just last year. And I'm sitting there like, yo, I mean, just 2 years ago, I would just get up, walk my 8 miles 3 times a week, and now it's like, I'm doing my 4 miles every other day. But I used to come do 8 miles and just get up or get on my bike and go riding. And it's just amazing aging is it waits for no one, and it has no, what's the word? It's no,
it's the equalizer.
It's the great equalizer, as they say. It's you. I told Gwendolyn, I think last week we were talking, and I said, well, you got 10 years. You got 10 years to be where I am now. And when you get here, I'll be able to say, oh, remember I told you? But then I'll be a 70 saying, I got more news for you.
I feel it. I believe if you keep moving, and you do have to make some adjustments to your diet and stuff.
But let me tell you,
and family history has a play in there too. But I forget how old I am. I'm like,
it's a state of mind. My husband is 79 years old. He walks 6 miles every day. On purpose, every day.
Yeah, you have to. It has to be on purpose.
Rain or shine, he's out there, and he gets that 6 miles.
He gets it in.
Yeah, every day.
I'm getting mine in today. I say I'm going out, getting it in. But
you
have to force yourself. You can't give into it though, because your body will say, I can't do it today. It's just not going to happen. And you have to fight yourself and say, nope, I'm going to just stop what I'm doing. I'm going to go out and go for my walk.
Well, I'm reminded what you're saying. Remind my grandmother in her later years, or latter years, whatever. And I talk to her more frequently, in the years. You have a feeling that, hey, let me not take this for granted. But one of the many conversations that has always stuck, and she said, she always called me by my full name in her Southern accent, Brian Kai Young, my mind is sharp as a whip. Now my body is the one that's on strike. And that's what
that's what happens.
Your mind is still going. My mind is still quick.
Your mind,
for the most part.
She was a teacher. She was an educator for nearly 50 years. And Head Start, which I'm like, I feel like, I say this in jest, but I feel like choking one of these 14-year-olds after.
Kids are no joke.
That's why you do Head Start.
They keep you
Kids
young.
are no joke.
But they kept her young, and they kept her moving, and that's a statement that still sticks at all the conversations I had with her, and I feel you on the. I'm not old, but my body has been through so much.
Right.
And that's the whole thing too. Like when I was younger, I mountain bike, I rock climb, I hike, I jump out of plane. Well, one plane. I jumped out of a plane.
Isn't that wonderful?
I mean, I ski. I used to ski. I've sprained my leg, on my fingers, my hands, my knees, my back. I've had every kind of accident along the way. And so what happens is, as you get older, all those old wounds, they flare up during weather changes, or if it's a storm coming in, then I know it's coming in because every joint is on fire. It's like, oh man, it's gonna be a bad storm. I remember my grandparents used to say it's gonna be a bad storm, and I was like, what are you talking about? But it really does happen. Aging is not for the weak in heart, for sure. It takes a lot of strength and mental strength and the capacity of living and having purpose.
You're thinking about Kamala Harris is talking about elder care.
Yes.
It's so different in other countries.
Yes.
How they take care of their elderly.
Yes.
And I know people talk about China all the time. I traveled to China 3 times. And the elders there gather every day in a park somewhere. They either doing Tai Chi. I've seen them playing elder men playing basketball. These are like senior citizens playing basketball. They're in a park doing lace work. They're doing but they have a community. They're playing cards. They're doing it, but they're encouraged to do that. They have
here in Chinatown.
They have exercise facilities that they actually put in place for the elderly to go out and do things with their muscles and all kinds of things. It's fascinating to see how well they take care of the elderly. And our Chinese teacher from the school my last school, he was like, when I retire, I'm going back to China because of how. He said, because here you don't take care of your elderly people.
Well, that's one thing about that's one thing we do not have an advantage over any country is the love and the concern and the respect for our elderly as a society.
And I would say in pockets, I hope my optimism of this, I hope there are other families that are still having multiple generations within a household. It is not easy being sandwiched where you may, have young people and those that are elders above you. But but the benefits, and one of my best friends, unfortunately, his aunt passed away, but his family, they were multi-generational within his household. Fortunately, they had, I believe it was, I don't know what you call it in New York, brownstone. I just keep thinking when I visited my buddy.
We call everything a brownstone that has 3 floors.
Huge one.
I just think of when I visited my friend at his family's home, I was like, dude, you're like the Huxtables, because his aunt had her own little space, and she would come upstairs and interact. So when she would be with the family, cool, but then she'd go down and have her own kitchen and bed, live full on separate spot. Unfortunately, she passed away, but his kids, what I feel like, and I was telling him this is about a year ago, and I was like, bruh, the experience that you've given your children by a living example of respecting your elders, that was your mom's sister. And his mom is still alive. But there's some family dynamics there. His mom's like, look, she ain't coming to stay with me. He's like, Ma, she'll take it. Him and his family took in auntie. But his kids watched and learned empathy, love, respect, stories. His kids were always down there, like getting the inside dish on their grandmother from her,
well, that's the, I mean, that's the, I'm just going to just chime in there, is that that's the difference. Like when I'm thinking about Paris, living and all that other stuff. But when I am overseas in Europe, I'm in Paris, when I'm in, a place like Spain, or if it's, even in England, you go to the, Great Britain and go to all different places, but mainly in Spain, or you go to France, well, in my case, Paris and France. The most of those systems it's the children, it's the husband, wife, children, and mom and dad, or the grandparents live within the household. And it's very common also in Japanese life as well, where the parents live with the children. The children now have their children, so the sandwich is always around. They in the continuity and throughout society, and there's a lot of advantages of that, because again, you don't have to worry about babysitters, you don't have to worry about this, you don't have to worry about that, education, all the stuff that are coming, that you gain by having 3 generations living together. But we're at the end of our conversation. So, but this was really good.
Can I
yeah, go ahead. A quick thought
that it's been on my mind. And at least what you said, your husband's 78?
79.
79?
79.
As Black men, I am thankful for your husband to be 79. Ron, I am thankful for you to be of an age where you can complain about I don't want to say complain, but
no complain. Oh yes, complain.
And I think of a conversation it's been on my spirit past several days. A conversation I had with my mom. My uncle should be alive. My mom's only brother out of the 9 children, he was murdered when he never got to see his 30th birthday. And that's due to, racism and back then. But Black men should be able to grow old.
Oh yeah, we are blessed to be.
Yeah.
A lot
I'm thankful for you guys.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time. People they're like, Ron, I can't believe you're 60 because you do all this and do that. You're always on the go. You're always moving around. You're this place, you're that place. You're in there, and I am in that way. And some of my peers do not operate on that level of getting out and about. However, to get out and about, you feel it though at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Once you get home, you're like, oh yeah. The next morning you have to wake up, you have to stretch and do all the things you need to do to get back into action.
Oh, trust me, he feels it now. He feels it.
You feel it.
He's so well cared for though.
He got Elise. Elise gonna put on a nice jazz album, and she's gonna go over to him and say, hello, sir.
Like throw a little lipstick on, get him out of the chair.
There you go, Elise.
It happens all the time.
Oh man.
School us, youngsters.
I'm telling you, you take it. Look, I put a song on. I said, this song is a song.
I knew you did. I knew you did.
We dance like people don't dance anymore. A little
I
slow
know
dance.
you do.
I know.
Dance. Elise is one of those people. Again, I've had some great times with Elise, because every time she comes to New York for the last 2 years, we've at least taken one day to just spend time together. Yeah. And it is so, I learned so much from her, and especially when she tells me about her husband and the kids and how they interact. And I am like always, I walk away with feel like I just went to school on relationships, because it is so important to love the people that are in your life, and because you're not guaranteed to have them forever. And I realized that when I'm going to get off of here, but when I was at my cousin's wedding this summer, and so after I left with Adrian, then I went the following weekend. I was with my cousins and my father, who I did not grow up with my father. Mm-hmm. And so we're we're at the wedding. He's sitting next to me, and this was the first time in my life. I'm 60 years old. My father is now 82 years old. So he's 82 years old. He's 82. I'm 60 years old. And this is the first time in my life that I'm sitting next to my father.
Wow. That's
side by side.
Right.
And then he starts to cry. And he starts to cry. I don't know. First I was like, why is he crying at a wedding? Get a grip, sir. but he was crying because of my cousin who got married is one of his favorite nieces. But I went through 1,000 emotions within a second because I did not know how to interact with my father. I did not know. I mean, if Adrian was sitting next to me, I'd grab Adrian, hold him, and he'll just hug me out. Whatever. If it was my best friend or one of my friends, I would just grab him. I had no no history of going over to hug my father in the middle of or to console him while he was crying. And I was going through all these emotions because it was like, oh my gosh, this is the first time this is ever happening. I don't know exactly what to do. I never did this before. And this is then you're upset because of this. You're going through 1,000 emotions.
You got a lot of stuff in there to unpack.
Oh, there was a whole lot to go in.
I know one thought that came to your mind, but anyway.
I was like, it was a moment. And then I just took it in as a moment, held him as he wept, and then I was able to let it go.
Right.
And he had never ever been held by me. Never ever as the last time we ever interacted was when I was a child. So it was so
passion showed up.
Man, I said this, and my father's 82 years old, but he's out there working. He's doing his thing. He's trying to do. He's like, you need to make sure you call me. Make sure you reach out. I want to talk. I said, and then I go through these emotions, and then so then my aunt was like, she saw us having a conversation. My father was ready to do one of his things. I'm your dad, and I'm your father, and I have a mouth on me sometimes, and I can say with respect. So my aunt saw my interaction with him. So then after I said to him, we can't have that conversation right now, but there's some great cookies over there I think you should try. So my aunt was like, we will be talking tomorrow.
So Ron, I'll tell you this.
Yes.
From personal experience.
Yes.
Whatever questions you have for your father, ask him. Because I have questions now I cannot get answers to. Because my mother's not around to answer those questions, nor is anyone else around old enough to answer the questions. He's out there. He's still cognitive. Ask him the questions that create the trauma and triggers things within you that you deserve the answers for, and that you, even if you don't consciously think about it, you want the answers to.
Yeah.
So ask the questions and don't worry about his reaction, but continue to ask the question until you get your questions answered, because he's the only one that can answer the questions that came up in your head when he started to cry sitting next to you and he was crying for someone else. So you had questions that came up in your head. Ask the questions. Now you have control. You're in the pilot seat. You're the one that's in control of that conversation, and you deserve those answers. And I say that to anyone who has questions. I say that to any parent who needs to answer a question for a child. Answer that question even if your child doesn't ask it. And if you're the child, ask the question while they're still cognitive enough to answer your question. So I'll say that to you, my friend.
Well, thank you. That was good wisdom, and you get the last word, dear. That was very good, and so I will have to give him a call today. But thank you. That was I definitely received that. See, we all learn together. That's why I love community. We learn from each other. We encourage each other. We build each other up. So, guys, this is tomorrow is our Thursday. Our Trend Watch Thursday. We'll be talking more about politics again tomorrow and whatever's in the headlines. But again, make sure you stay connected to what's going on in the campaign world. Make sure you also, again, for those deadlines that are happening, that you make sure you are on the rolls. So that way, a lot of the deadlines are happening where you cannot sign up to or register to vote. So
Ron, can I share one quick thing about that?
Mm-hmm.
So I was on the Kenny Burns thing last night. They'll ask me to go live with them. So I was on there, but Kenny shared a story about John Copeland. If people are in follow D Nice, they know John Copeland's name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John Copeland happened to, Kenny made the statement on the 7th to go and check your voter registration in Arizona, Georgia. John lives in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
John checked it and found out that he wasn't there.
No.
And he's been living and voting in Arizona.
No.
So luckily for him, he was able to fix it. If it had not been for him finally paying attention to somebody who said, because everyone's been saying it, finally paying attention to someone who said it, go check your registration if you're in these states. He was able to meet that 11:59 deadline and get his registration straightened out.
Don't assume.
Don't assume that you're there just because you voted in the primary either. Don't.
There you go. There you go. It's so important, guys. Don't assume, because especially if it don't even matter what state you're in. So make sure. I don't care if you're in a northern state. I don't care if you're in the southern state. You're in the Midwest. You're in blue state, green state, yellow state, whatever. You need to be making sure you are registered to vote, so that way you can get your vote in. Your vote counts. Your vote matters.
Vote.org.
Vote.org. Yes, and I will vote as well. I will vote is also another one. Well, I will vote.org.
Say your tagline, Ron.
Okay, my tagline, you know how it is. We live life like we mean it, and we focus on what matters. And I'm out of here, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Love y'all. I love when y'all here. It's so good to have y'all support. And guys, have a great day. Love ya.